Now, we all know that in games of D&D, tabletop games, or whatever it is that you're playing, the important focus is the players. The players are the main characters. You're gonna focus on them. That's what you do. But one important factor I think gets really ignored is the NPCs. And I'm not talking about DMPCs or anything like that, but the important factor of the NPCs and how it can play into the PC stories if you do it correctly. And the way that I'm going to explain this is by going down this rabbit hole. How do player characters explore their emotional through thread? Now, this is for players who really enjoy roleplay. If your game doesn't really focus on roleplay and is more on the wargamey aspect of it, cool. This probably isn't for you, but it still might be applicable. But what I'm talking about today is emotionally complex NPCs and how they help the player characters explore their stories to the fullest and feel the most fulfilled. So let's talk about it. Now, when I'm discussing emotionally complex NPCs, what I mean is NPCs who clearly have a strong motivation for what it is that they're doing. It's oftentimes very easy to miss this and create caricatures as your NPCs. And let me make it clear, if your NPC is going to be a one-off, caricatures are the way to go. If you want them to stick in the player's mind and have a fun influence on the story, they're gonna have to be larger than life. You gotta make them big and bombastic because they're only gonna be there for a little bit amount of time and they only have so much time to make an impression. And that's really important. You can see this a lot of times in a lot of different live play games where they make these really big bombastic NPCs who only show up once or twice, but have a very lasting impact because of how large and incredibly weird they were.
Hello there. You come to do business, ain't I?
On fire tonight. Hello, old timer. Thank you.
Oh, hi. Hi there, little girl. Nice to see you.
Pleasant day we're having here.
Quite pleasant
Did you
indeed.
manage these stables here?
Hi, welcome to Zorth's Pits. I'm Zorth.
Zorth?
Yeah.
Zorth's Pit?
I didn't try.
Now, that being said, that's super fun, but what happens when you want to create something more emotionally resonant? And this is why it's important. When you create an NPC, it's really important that the players feel like there's something they can connect to with them if it's going to be an NPC who's going to be there long term. If it's just somebody who's there to be a meat shield, I mean, great, they'll probably be thankful, but that's not going to help them progress their story. But say you have a player character who has a very strong feeling of regret. They really regret something they did in their past, and then there's this NPC who seems very happy-go-lucky, very joyful of life, and yet the two of them constantly clash because of those different tendencies. But eventually, at one point, the NPC might reveal they had a huge regret. This then makes the other player character wonder, why does that NPC feel so joyful for life if they have such a large regret similar to them? What are they missing that that NPC has? This isn't about making it about the NPC, and I want to make that very clear. What this is about is helping the player character, specifically the player, realize where they can take their player character if they want to create a more interesting story. It's about providing options. If eventually they talk to the NPC and the NPC says, yeah, I do. I regret that every single day. But I realized at one point, why am I regretting it? Who is it holding back? It's not helping me to keep on dwelling on it. It's not helping the people that I harm. So eventually I just have to learn to move on with it. It will always be a part of me, but I have to forgive myself because I'm not doing anybody any favors. It's not about me. It's about the fact that I'm making everybody around me miserable. This then gives the player character the chance to reflect on that. Decide if they want to go down that route. The player can then look and say, is this a character arc I'm wanting to go down? It helps them reorganize and realign and also gives them a reason in story to begin making those changes if they want it. Many times it's very difficult for player characters to start to go down their character arc paths because they just don't have a reason to. Characters don't just randomly change. There has to be an inciting incident. And a lot of the times, it can be those NPCs.
Wait a minute. Anton, look at me straight. Answer me honestly now. Do you have panic attacks a lot? Do you like feel your breath kind of catch up in your... Yeah? Did your parents give you anything for that?
My parents just left and I don't know where they are.
He goes, God, and he gives you a big, warm, furry hug. You see, he goes, all right, you hear... He goes, listen to me, all right? You listen to me right here. Having panic attacks, that is not a character flaw. Do you understand? You are not a coward. You have a medical condition, all right? You're not a coward, Anon. You're sick. You just need medicine. You gotta come and talk to me. This is my job, God. He reaches into his cardigan, pulls out a little thing of pills. He goes, "Now, I was gonna sell this to a guy I know. One time stabbed me in the middle of an orgy, okay? These are for you. These are anxiety meds, all right? There is no shame in having mental illness. I'm sorry your parents didn't take care of this before. You are a good wizard. You are not wrong for having panic attacks. You understand me?"
Or say you have a player character who's incredibly innocent and always looks at things in a very naive way. And then another NPC comes along, also very naive, and gets traumatized by trying to go along with the adventures that they're doing. At that point, then the naive NPC is very traumatized and the naive PC has to ask him, why? Why are you traumatized? You're doing the same things I am. Maybe I probably have some issues I need to work through too. Maybe there's something else going on. Maybe I haven't considered this stuff. Providing those emotionally complex foils for your player characters gives them an opportunity to reflect on them and decide if that is a path they want to go down. And I find that incredibly important because it empowers the players to tell their own stories. Now, the pitfall of this is you start focusing too much on your NPCs, and then the NPCs become the main characters, which is just the last thing you ever want to do. The story is about the player character, so you have to be super careful about this. The way to do that is to make sure that if these NPCs begin to get too emotionally complex, too important to the story, have a reason for them to step away. If the players want them there, that's okay and that's fine, but even so, it might be worth having them step away to allow the player characters to take the spotlight and choose what to do. It's very, very difficult to find the balance of creating a very important NPC, but also not making them so important that they step on the player's toes, and you really want to avoid that. That is where the DMPC character comes in, and really, while I don't think DMPCs are bad, you really want to avoid having them for the most part. And so how I would avoid it, other than just having them leave, which I do think is genuinely a good option, is to also have this NPC take on a sort of mentorship role that can occasionally keep popping up. Place them in a portion of the world where the player characters will frequently return to. This makes it much easier for them to interact with them without having to constantly have them around with the party. It makes it so that the characters can choose when they want to progress that storyline and check in with the NPC. You put the power in the hands of the players, not the other way around. And then it also leads to fun times where you can occasionally have that NPC pop up for little short moments, but then have them leave again. It empowers the game to be a little bit more creative with the way that they want to explore things without being too overbearing with your characters. The last way that I would probably avoid stepping on toes with these NPCs is just straight up have them be less developed versions of the player characters. That also works. If you want to create a caricature, you can create a super, very hardened, very edgy caricature of the rogue that shows the rogue how everybody else might see them. It isn't necessarily super emotionally complex, but you just have somebody who takes the bad tendencies of one of the player characters to the extreme so that everybody can laugh at them, and also the player character can realize, hey, maybe there is some stuff I need to evaluate here. Maybe I need to change. And that really is something that could be incredibly valuable. But you'll notice all the examples I've given so far are just about holding a mirror up to your players and letting them decide how they want to view their character. And that really is what you need to do. You need to present them with reasons to reflect on their character and then figure out where they want to go from there. It's their choice. All you could do is give them options, but honestly, isn't that the rule and job of the Dungeon Master? And isn't that the single most inviting and exciting part of being a Dungeon Master? If you want to talk more about NPCs, I have a video right here that might be able to help you out. Go out into the world and make it your own.